Good morning, students. Today's class, we will be discussing about microbial products for commercial use. In that, lovastatin, that is the anti-cholesterol compound, and about the recombinant vaccines, the various different vaccines available, and their applications. All of those stuff we will be discussing. So let's get started with lovastatin production. So basically, these lovastatins are nothing but they are actually, fungi are important source for the production of several of the pharmaceutical compounds. Example, lovastatin, mebinolin, etc. And lovastatin is a patent drug for lowering blood cholesterol. And this lovastatin acts by competitively inhibiting the enzyme 3-hydroxy 3-methylglutaryl coenzyme A reductase, that is HMG-CoA. So which analyzes the rate limiting step of cholesterol biosynthesis. This is how it reduces the cholesterol biosynthesis. So this lovastatin is produced as a secondary metabolite by many of the fungi such as Penicillium species and Aspergillus species and various other organisms as well. So nowadays, these lovastatins and the semi-synthetic derivatives are very important drugs since the mortality of heart disease is becoming relatively high. And this lovastatin is member of drug class of statins used for lowering the cholesterol in those with hypercholesterolemia and so preventing the cardiovascular disease. So it is used along with proper diet to help lower the bad cholesterol and fats. So the bad cholesterol is nothing but LDL and triglycerides, and to raise the good cholesterol, that is HDL, in the blood. And it belongs to the group of drugs known as statins. And these lovastatin is a naturally occurring drug found in foods such as oyster mushrooms and red yeast rice. So several strains of fungi are capable to produce the lovastatin, and they are Aspergillus, Penicillium, Trichoderma, Phoma, Pythium, and Pleurotus. And of course, along with this, there might be many other organisms, but these are specifically more in production. So some yeast strains are also capable of producing lovastatin. So this drug was first statin drug, which was approved by US Food and Drug Administration in the year 1987. So Aspergillus terreus was used for it was used first for the production, and Pleurotus species used as ACP is also capable of producing lovastatin. Along with that, there are other species also. So lowering bad cholesterol and triglycerides along with raising the cholesterol decreases the risk of heart disease and helps to prevent strokes and heart attack. We know how severe it would be, for a person to undergo these conditions. So when we consider about the lovastatin production, as such, the first organism that comes to our mind would be Aspergillus terreus, because it's commercially also been used for the production of lovastatin using batch fermentation. So this Aspergillus terreus fermentations were typically carried out at 28 degrees centigrade and at a pH of 5.8 to 6.3. So the dissolved oxygen level is controlled at 40% of air saturation. So what we got to know is the temperature, pH and the aeration is very, very important. So batch fermentation generally runs for 10 days or sometimes maybe lesser than this. And in some cases, pelleted growth of Aspergillus terreus has yielded higher titers of lovastatin than obtained from the filamentous growth. So other organisms, it's by monoascus species. So here, usually under the lab scale, if we can discuss first initially, and then probably that could be transferred to an industrial scale. So spore suspension of 5 ml of Monoascus species. It can be Monoascus purpureus or Sanguinis, which is inoculated into conical flask containing 50 ml of potato dextrose broth, which is incubated at 30 degrees centigrade for 5 days with shaking at an RPM of 150 RPM per minute. And these cultures are used as inoculum. So the commercial production of lovastatin is based on Monoascus species by solid substrate fermentation. So it could be done by solid substrate fermentation, or it can also be done by submerged fermentation. So if submerged fermentation is there, then batch fermentation, or it could be done by two-stage fermentation. And in case of solid substrate fermentation, these are the parameters to be considered. And here Biocon is the first company, Indian company, that produced pharmaceutical compound from fermentation. And it had received an appropriate approval from FDA for the production of lovastatin, which was patented in 2001 itself. So since lovastatin is a secondary metabolite, an optimally balanced culture medium was prepared, and in which the major sources were carbon and nitrogen, and because these play a dominant role in fermentation productivity. So here the submerged fermentation, submerged batch fermentation of lovastatin production reported, at a temperature, I mean, the fermentations were carried out at 28 degrees with a pH of 5.8 to 6.3. And as such, as we discussed previously with our previous organism as well, the dissolved oxygen level is controlled at 40% air saturation. And this fermented dry substrate was then taken with the 20 ml methanol and kept in a shaker incubator for 2 hours at 180 RPM and at 70 degrees centigrade. It was then filtered with Whatman filter paper, and filtrate was centrifuged at 3000 RPM for 8 minutes. So this lovastatin from this Monoascus species extracts was analyzed using TLC. And this was performed on silica gel with benzene, acetone, and acetic acid at the ratio of 70:30:3 as mobile phase. So this is with the lab scale. The same thing, once the production is done, it could be used for the commercial basis as well. So this is the media composition of the basal media for solid substrate fermentation, wherein dextrose, peptone, potassium nitrate, all of these, chemicals, other chemicals are also used. Ammonium phosphate, magnesium sulfate, and calcium chloride are also used. This is at the lab scale, and the same thing could be used for the commercial scale as well. So coming to the applications of lovastatin, these statins, they reduce the hepatic cholesterols, leading to reduced gallstone formation and reduced platelet aggregation. So simvastatin has been found to reduce the incidence of neurodegenerative disorders such as Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. And it had proven to reduce the coronary heart disease in patients by lowering the plasma cholesterol level. So it reduced, lovastatin is reduced proliferation of lung cancer, breast cancer and liver cancer, as well as cervical cancer. So this is, it also modulates the inflammatory response, and it's used to treat patients with renal diseases, and it also helps in bone maturation, hence it is used in the treatment of bone fractures. Of course, these compounds, lovastatin compounds, have great effect on cancer cells, but the site of action and mechanism is not clearly known. So this is related to lovastatin. And coming to the next parameter, or the microbial product, that is recombinant vaccines. So basically these vaccine or rather vaccination, is the phenomenon of preventive immunization. So in modern concept, it involves the administration, that is, it can be injection or through oral means of an antigen to elicit an antibody response that will protect the organism against future infections. So these vaccines, although in a very crude form, they're used in peculiar manner by various people or over the period. And smallpox is a virulent disease with a high death rate. Even the survivor become victims of permanent disfigurement, blindness, and mental retardation. So for this, it was first produced. So Edward Jenner, who is an English physician, he observed that farmers and milkmaids working with cows developed a mild form of smallpox called cowpox or vaccinia, and the cowpox infection could protect these people from infection of smallpox. So it was in 19... Sorry for the inconvenience, there was some technical issue. So it was in 1796, Jenner experimentally tested this observation, and he inoculated an 8-year-old boy with exudate from a cowpox lesion. And he repeated it twice with a gap of some weeks. And he then inoculated more human volunteers. So he noted that smallpox did not develop in these volunteers. This was the first discovery of the principle of vaccination. And so this recombinant vaccines, these recombinant vaccines, basically it's a vaccine that is produced through recombinant DNA technology, which involves inserting the DNA encoding an antigen such as a bacterial surface protein that stimulates an immune response into bacterial or mammalian cells. So the traditional production of vaccines has several drawbacks. So it's not possible to develop vaccines for an organism not grown in culture, and the yield of vaccine is very low. Cell cultures are costly to maintain, and also there is danger of non-virulent organisms getting converted to virulent ones. So vaccinations by such organisms may cause the disease itself. So these are several of the factors wherein we had to think about going in for recombinant vaccines. So this recombinant DNA technology in recent years has become a boon to produce new generation vaccines. In addition, several new strategies involving gene manipulation are being tried to create novel recombinant vaccines. So the different types of recombinant vaccines include subunit recombinant vaccines, and these are components of the pathogenic organism itself, and they include proteins, peptides, and DNA. And next one being attenuated recombinant vaccines. These are genetically modified pathogenic organisms of bacteria or viruses that are made non-pathogenic and used as vaccines. And the third one being vector recombinant vaccines. And these are genetically modified viral vectors that are used as vaccines against certain pathogens. So subunit vaccines, subunit recombinant vaccines are the components, rather proteins, peptides, DNAs of the pathogenic organism. The advantages of these vaccines include their purity in preparation and stability, along with their safety to use, like safe to use. The disadvantages are basically high cost and possible alteration in native conformation. The examples being hepatitis B, foot and mouth disease, herpes simplex virus, tuberculosis, BCG vaccine, meningitis. So all of these come under subunit vaccines. And few of the examples here of viral and bacterial live attenuated, killed inactivated and subunit vaccines. So under viral live attenuated, you have vaccinia, polio, yellow fever, measles, mumps, rubella, influenza and rotavirus. Killed inactivated is again polio, IPV, rabies, influenza, hepatitis A. Under subunit, it is hepatitis B and human papilloma virus, HPV virus. Under bacterial, under live attenuation, we have BCG, Salmonella typhi, which is oral, and Bordetella pertussis, cholera, Bacillus anthracis. And in case of subunits, we have several of them, that is including tetanus toxoid, diphtheria toxoid, Neisseria, meningitis, Bordetella pertussis, Streptococcus pneumoniae, Haemophilus influenza, Neisseria meningitis, polysaccharide conjugate, Streptococcus pneumoniae, Salmonella typhi. And so all of these come under subunit vaccine. So these are the pictorial representation. This is the pictorial representation where we can see all the different types of vaccines, including live, attenuated, inactivated, killed antigen, subunit, or purified antigen, or toxoid antigen. So these are the examples under each different category. So under live attenuated, we have tuberculosis, BCG, OPV, measles, rotavirus, and yellow fever. Under inactivated, that's whole cell pertussis, inactivated poliovirus. So all of these come under various different types of vaccines. So recombinant protein vaccines, so most of these vaccines under investigation today are based on highly purified recombinant proteins or subunits of pathogens. So the classical examples just now that we discussed, are even human vaccine against hepatitis B. So hepatitis B virus, that is HBV infection, it's a chronic liver disease occurring worldwide. HBV presents a marked tropism for human liver cells, particularly due to specific receptor that's expressed on the surface of infected cells. So the current vaccines are produced by expressing the hepatitis B surface antigen in yeast cells, and this HBsAg assembles into virus-like particles, that is VLPS, which are extremely immunogenic, making the HBV vaccine a very efficacious vaccine. So this is the production, or rather the final outcome of the HB vaccine, wherein HB virus DNA or RNA, it is the HB antigen producing gene is taken and inserted into the plasmid DNA, where a cut is made using restriction enzyme. With recombinant DNA, and this particular recombinant DNA is inserted into, or rather introduced into yeast cells, and thus with the purification steps, we can get the HB vaccine. So more recently developed example of recombinant vaccine is the vaccine against human papilloma viruses. It's one of the most common sexually transmitted diseases, and this infection is associated with many types of mucocutaneous diseases in humans, including cervical, vulvar, and vaginal cancers, along with genital warts. So these vaccines are given in 3 doses using aluminum potassium sulfate as adjuvant, which induces high titers of virus neutralizing serum antibodies. So the different systems to produce recombinant vaccines include, there are several of them, by using biotechnological applications, under which include peptide chemical synthesis using microorganisms, animal cells, plant cells, transgenic plants, and transgenic animals. So under peptide chemical synthesis, of course, a number of peptides covering pathogen protein known to induce vaccination may be chemically synthesized and tested for their capacity to induce a protection against a particular pathogen. So this was achieved with the fragments of VP6 proteins from rotavirus. So essential epitopes of the protein for vaccination may thus be determined. This makes it impossible it makes it possible the identification of mechanisms of immune response induced by each epitope. So the peptides containing relevant epitopes may then be chemically synthesized and chemically linked to carrier protein. Thus, the resulting material may be used as vaccine. Alternatively, fusion recombinant proteins containing the epitopes of interest and a carrier protein known to induce vaccination may be prepared. So likewise, we also can use microorganisms, so which were first to be used to produce recombinant proteins. So human insulin has been prepared for the last 20 years by bacteria, and these bacteria may produce so high amount of recombinant proteins that they form inclusion bodies, precluding an easy purification. So some proteins are toxic for bacteria and cannot be prepared in this way. So yeasts may be easily transformed. They often produce limited amounts of recombinant proteins, so which are not glycosylated or unduly glycosylated. So interestingly, there are several genes coding for these glycosylating enzymes have been transferred into yeast, so which has become capable of adding several of the carbohydrates that are present in human proteins. So likewise, it could be produced using animal cells. So various animal cells are currently being used to prepare recombinant proteins for experimental studies of biotechnical applications. So most of the recombinant proteins used as pharmaceuticals are being prepared from animal cells. So likewise, transgenic plants are also being used. So the first transgenic plants were obtained in 1983. So apart from their use for basic studies, these transgenic plants are increasingly used to improve food production. So the idea of using transgenic plants as source of recombinant proteins has become reality, and a number of enzymes used for research for this and diagnosis are currently being produced at an industrial scale. So the two essential methods are implemented to transfer genes to plants. One of those tools is Agrobacterium tumefaciens system, which contains a natural vector able to transfer a foreign gene into the plant genome, and the other known as Biolistic consists of projecting minute bullets covered by DNA into plant cells. So this is related to Agrobacterium tumefaciens, wherein the plasmid is removed from the bacterium, and the tDNA is cut by restriction enzymes, where next step being foreign DNA is cut by the same enzyme, that is restriction enzyme, and the foreign DNA is inserted to tDNA of the plasmid. So recombination takes place. The plasmid is reinserted into bacterium. The bacterium is used to insert the tDNA carrying the foreign gene into the chromosomes of the plant cell, and thus the plants are grown on culture. A plant is generated from a cell clone, so all of its cells carry the foreign genes and may express it as a new trait. So all these basically are to say that the proteins from a particular sample could be taken and inserted, and recombination can be done for a particular product. So live recombinant vaccines using bacterial or viral vectors. As a result of advances in the fields of molecular biology and genetic engineering, it is now possible to create live recombinant vectors capable of delivering heterologous antigens by introduction of antigen encoding genes. So the idea behind this approach is to use the capacity of infection and the immunological properties of the live vector to elicit an immune response against its own proteins. So, as well as towards so a number of bacteria such as Salmonella typhi and BCG are and viruses have been investigated as a live recombinant vector vaccine. So with this, I think we will wind up with the discussion of recombinant vaccines as well. So for the examination point of view also, the production of lovastatin and recombinant enzymes are important. So just see to it that you don't have to worry about these different, processes that we until the various methods that, we're using all of these that we discussed, but the main importance has to be given as to what are these recombinant vaccines and the application part of it. And basically lovastatin, it's also what is lovastatin, its production and its importance, or rather the application is very, very important. And sorry for the inconvenience that caused during recording. There were some technical issues. Thank you for your patience.